Hello and welcome, my friends. Okay, today is once more time for a true story. This one is a true story that kept me absolutely terrified as a little kid. The story happened to my mother when she was young, in the 60s or 70s. She had recently landed a good job, was working full-time, and made ends meet with complete ease in her life. She had bought an apartment of her own in a suburb of a large town, and even though she did not have a family of her own yet, she had lots of friends to have fun and spend time with. Well, if you know my mum, she's a grounded, hands-on person. She's religious, but not to the extent where she would mix the religion with the goings-on of the secular world. So she doesn't generally see things, or she doesn't expect to encounter otherworldly creatures and happenings in her day-to-day life. In her youth, however, she had felt this need to get more in touch with her spiritual side, and she wanted to explore other religions and philosophies too. With her friends, my mom had started to dabble with yoga, New Age philosophies, meditation, and other practices that she does not clearly wish to talk about in great detail. As time rolled by, she had started to get a slight feeling that these practices might not be completely sort of in line with her Christian beliefs, and that when compared to what the Bible says, the practices were downright wrong, sinful. To what extent they would harm her, though, she would not have guessed. One night, my mother was in her flat, lying in bed, because she had already switched off the light in her bedroom and had already dozed off for a short while, when she suddenly found herself wide awake. She saw her room shrouded in shadows, with a street lamp painting a dimly lit window-shaped square on the floor. Well, she sat up in her strawberry pattern baby doll nightgown on her beautiful brass cot bed when she suddenly noticed a dark shape stand by her door. This was a menacing dark figure that would not disappear, even though she blinked her eyes. This shape was in the form of a man, but completely dark, filled with blackness in which no features or characteristics could be distinguished. There was no sound in the room, no sounds of breathing, or of the faint ruffling of clothes, or anything that would somehow explain that someone would have wandered into her apartment. And the doors were locked anyway, so there could be no real explanation as to why this figure was in her room. The pitch black shape did not move closer, but it was clearly threatening and felt overpowering, and its darkness seemed to devour all the other shadows in the room. The figure seemed to radiate cold air, and the room temperature seemed to drop drastically. My mother she felt the sensation of alarm wash over her whole body. She could feel that the being was malevolent, and that in some way it had come to claim her. Even with her initial disbelief and blinking, there was only one thought in her head now, that this was an evil spirit, a demon in her room. Scared and desperate beyond belief, my mom closed her eyes and began to pray. Amid her horror, she could not even recite the Lord's Prayer. She simply started to breathe in while saying aloud, "Dear Jesus," and out with, "Help me," again and again. This continued for a pretty long while, and as she started to regain her peace and calm, she finally opened her eyes, and the dark shape was nowhere to be seen. The area near the door to her bedroom was strewn with rays of light from the street lamp outside. No more pitch black darkness engulfing the normal dance of shadows in the room. After this incident, my mom actually abandoned her New Age practices and the reading of Eastern philosophies, and she believed firmly that these were what had invited the being to visit her. I was 10 years old when my mom told me of her experience. At this time, I had a room of my own and was sleeping in my mother's old brass cot. Needless to say, after hearing this story, it was really hard for me to catch sleep in those conditions. I can remember myself crying and asking questions. My mom sitting on one side of my bed, stroking my hair, trying to calm me down and telling me that nothing would harm me if I kept my faith. When she left my side, she left the door open, so the light from the TV room shone onto the doorstep of my room. But even so, I took on the habit of pulling my bed covers over my head so as to avoid staring at any random shadows in the corners of my room. Well, there you go. This was the story, and hope you enjoyed the tale. Now have a very Merry Christmas, and see you again soon for more of the terrifying stories. Bye!